Hey there, I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and the charts have gotten back to normal. I'm not sure that's exactly a good thing, and it's Billboard BREAKDOwn. I don't remember. It's difficult for me to describe why weeks like this are so frustrating, but I think it's rooted in the fact that there is an opportunity here that Billboard chooses not to take. See, all the holiday music, it's gone, it evaporated, no longer on the Hot 100. And that normally means this would be an ideal time to, release music, capitalize on the open window. And indeed, a bunch of that's going to be coming in the next week or two. I'm at least excited. Or hell, there's stuff from last year that stuck around. I expected some big rebounds, that's fine too. But this just feels like a reset to the Hot 100 before the holidays, including a lot of the bigger returns. It doesn't feel new, it doesn't feel special, and while all of it actually does fit the recurrency rules and it does reflect how streaming's fallen out for it, I gotta ask, was the fall of 2023 so good that the radio couldn't aggressively start courting new material? Your format is dying, it's weaker than it's been in years. This is a really bad way to maintain any shred of relevancy or credibility. And nowhere does this feel more apparent than our top 10, where making the return to number 1, Lovin' on Me by Jack Harlow. And look, I get it, despite the song being crap, he's got traction in all categories, proving that, once again, lazy sampling and hacky lyrics can still get traction, especially on the radio, handily jumping over Cruel Summer by Taylor Swift at number 2, which despite it literally being in the middle of the winter, still dominates radio with a ridiculous margin with healthy streaming to boot. Then we got Greedy by Tate McRae surging to number 3. Again, strong streaming and radio, though airplay seems to be leveling off a little. And Paint the Town Red by Doja Cat at number 4, which also seems to be coming to a radio peak and lags significantly on streaming. What isn't lagging is I Remember Everything by Zach Bryan and Casey Musgraves at number 5. Streaming has just been incredibly solid, even over the holidays, as the radio has been excruciatingly slow to get on board. We're starting to see a little traction, but then we get our first big return, Snooze by SZA at number 6. And yes, it does make sense why it's back, given the higher streaming and the radio margins, but it's also absolutely on the downswing. I expect it to be eclipsed by Water by Tyla quite soon, which surged up to number 7, albeit in this case more because of radio stability than any tangible streaming traction, which isn't precisely surprising given the sound, but it is kind of disappointing for a good song by a new artist. What's more disappointing is Last Night by Morgan Wallen still clinging to the top 10 at number 8 because the streaming will not die even as the radio frantically tries to dump it. All the more bizarre compared to Fast Car by Luke Combs, which saw a ridiculous radio surge this week at number 9 even as its streaming is pretty much long gone. Finally, breaking into the top 10, we got Agora Hills by Doja Cat at number 10, where the radio has felt rather abortive even as the streaming is mostly decent. I guess RCA's patience ran out faster than I personally expected. Interesting. Anyway, we don't really have any losers or dropouts this week. All the holiday music is gone. There were no real losses. So we have to focus on the returns and gains, and let's start off with the former. I already mentioned Snooze, but it belongs to the first group of returns. The older songs that are back because, quite frankly, the recurrency window allows for it in the top 50. And with that, Flowers by Miley Cyrus at 15, What Was I Made For by Billie Eilish at 20, Vampire by Olivia Rodrigo at 21, Need a Favor and Save Me by Jelly Roll, the former at 22, the latter with Lainey Wilson at 28, Dance the Night by Dua Lipa at 23, Fuck You Mean by Gunna at 24, Kill Bill by SZA at 31, and Dial Drunk by Noah Kahan and Post Malone at 48. The second group are songs that are lesser hits or just never got proper traction getting a second wind, and I'm a little bit more forgiving of those. Emphasis on little because we have to start with Travis Scott with I Know at 40, Fiend with Playboy Cardi at 79, and My Eyes at 94. Then working our way down, we got Different Round Here by Riley Green and Luke Combs at 64, Soak City Do It by 310 Baby at 68, One of Your Girls by Troye Sivan at 69, apropos, Perro Negro by Bad Bunny and Fide at 72, and We Don't Don't Fight Anymore by Carly Pearce and Chris Stapleton at 73. Then we got a couple Zach Bryan songs, Oklahoma Smoke Show at 75, Burn 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 at 93, and Tourniquet at 98. Wondering Why by the Red Clay Strays at 76, by Big X The Plug at 77, and then Olivia Rodrigo clawing back with Bad Idea Right at 80. From there, Can't Have Mine by Dylan Scott at 82, Virginia Beach and Slime You Out with SZA by Drake at 84 and 91 respectively, Richmond North of Richmond by Oliver Anthony at 85, Northern Attitude by Noah Kahan and Hozier at 86, Now That We Don't Talk by Taylor Swift at 87, Mi Ex Tenía Razón and Amargura by Karol G at 89 and 99 respectively, Run for the Hills by Tate McRae at 90, Better Place by NSYNC at 92, Turks and Caicos by Rod Wave featuring 21 Savage at 95, and E Loro by Junior H at 97. And yet, when it comes to the gains, here's where we encounter a roadblock, because outside of our returns, our new arrivals, and Lovin' On Me, Needle by Nicki Minaj and Drake, and Lace It by the late Juice WRLD, Benny Blanco, and Eminem, every other song can be classified as a gain. It literally makes no sense for me to just list off over half the Hot 100. That provides no useful context, especially when most of these gains are just filling in the gaps where holiday music used to be by jumping 20 to 30 spots. So here's what I will try to do. I'm going to focus on the notable shifts and the absolute biggest gains. Say 33 slots or higher. If they jumped a third of the chart, that counts. Let's start with the rebounds, where Nicki Minaj actually did get a few, with FTCU at 17 and Everybody by Lil Uzi Vert at 27, as well as Standing Next to You by Jungkook bouncing back yet again to 70. Then we saw returns that saw a boost, like Man Made a Bar by Morgan Wallen featuring Eric Church at 66, or El Amor de Su Vida by Grupo Frontera and Grupo Firm at 67. Then we got the continued uptick for Javi with La Victima at 55 and La Diabla at 34. Again, this traction feels very real. I expect this guy to have a pretty good year. Now for our biggest gains, outside of those shifts, and still a hefty list. Lose Control by Teddy Swims at 12. Is It Over Now by Taylor Swift at 13. Lil Boo Thang by Paul Russell at 14. Rich Baby Daddy by Drake, Sexy Red and SZA at 16. White Horse by Chris Stapleton at 18. Stick Season by Noah Kahan at 19. World on Fire by Nate Smith at 25. Houdini by Dua Lipa at 26. Truck Bed by Hardy at 36. Save Me the Trouble by Dan Shay at 38. Wild Ones by Jesse Murph and Jelly Roll at 41. The Painter by Cody Johnson at 45. Burn It Down by Parker McCollum at 53. Feather by Sabrina Carpenter at 56. And Hey Driver by Zach Bryan and the Warren Treaty at 60. In other words, there's a whole lot of country here. The genre as a whole rode its stability, for better and occasionally for worse. But for all of that, we only have 5 new arrivals, because again, this time of year is rather dire for new releases, at least for the next couple of weeks. Let's get this started with number 100, Wildflowers and Wild Horses by Lainey Wilson.
Like a daisy through old sidewalk cracks. Yeah, my kind of crazy, still running its courses with wildflowers and wild horses.
You know, one thing I can respect from Lainey Wilson and her team is that they at least try to work some later album singles, and considering this one only got a proper push in November of last year, it's actually ahead of schedule on Nashville radio, capitalizing on a quiet week. And okay, you know what? If there was a week for this to sneak onto the Hot 100 early, it might be this one, because it caught me off guard in a really good way. The slow burn tap builds up some credible, smoky western atmosphere behind all those snarled guitars and touches a piano that after the first hook seemed to cut into something closer to a bluegrass shuffle as the tempo ramps up, including a pretty impressive acoustic solo after the second hook. I mean, I wish the reverbed atmosphere around her vocals specifically blended a little better. You can tell audibly when they are shifting from placing her near the front of the mix for the hook to then deeper into the whole expanse, and the content does feel a bit lightweight. Very much a stormy cowgirl song out in the fields that's more about accentuating how awesome she is for it and multiple generations of her family at hell-raising rather than telling more of a story. But honestly, how often do women get to make this kind of song and make it sound absolutely kick-ass and it not come from Carrie Underwood? It's a total swerve when it comes to a single in the modern era, and while the success of White Horse might give this a proper shot, I'm not really sure how much Nashville will take to it. But you know what? That's probably an indictment on them. This is a really damn cool song, check it out. Number 98, Murder on the Dance Floor by Sophie Ellis-Bextor.
Hey, it's murder on the dance floor. But you better not steal the moves, DJ. Gonna burn this goddamn house right down.
Alright, my fans in the UK are already well familiar with this song, given that it was first released in 2001. But for those of you who don't know, Sophie Ellis-Bextor is a pop artist who was originally part of the indie rock band The Audience, and this is from her debut album. Over the last 20 years, her work has been pretty well received by those in the know, especially in the UK. But this is one of her biggest hits off that debut album, produced by Greg Alexander of the New Radicals, that just so happened to get featured in the film Saltburn last year, which caused the expected burst of virality. And you know, as someone who knows a little bit about the UK pop of this era, Girls Aloud were totally my shit, I unironically love S Club 7, this is playing to a lot of the late 90s disco flair, with the strings hits, the glossy synths, the chimes, that ridiculously tight bass line, and the occasional distant squonk of guitar. And yet I don't quite love this as much as you might think of me. Sophie Ellis-Bextor brings the right sort of breathy sultriness to sell it, but the intended tension of murder, even if it's just in the playful dance-off, it feels like it needs a little bit more of a lyrical edge, or the guitars to pop a bit louder. I mean, it's certainly good, and if more pop sounds like this in 2024, I'm not going to remotely complain, but I know a lot of folks consider this a classic. I get it, I'm just not fully there. Number 81, Romp la Dompe by Peso, Pluma, Junior H, and Oscar Maydon. So my concern with Peso Pluma was always going to be how he'd continue his momentum with the regional Mexican sound. If it's going to be a thing longer term in the Hot 100, capitalizing on momentum is going to be key. So with this song dropped very late last year with Junior H and Oscar Maydon stepping up for the assist, although Junior H still has no personality to speak of and Oscar Maydon isn't much better, I'll admit at least the production has gotten steadily better. The horns still fart around and the choppy acoustics feel brittle as all hell, but the bass line is better balanced and there's a more interesting melodic hook in that acoustic line that actually builds a little bit more distinctive swagger. And the lyrics kind of get there. The song is named for an expensive bottle of champagne, the Dom Perignon, as it is, and while Junior H seems to imply he is post-breakup and wants this girl to get pretty far away from him, the other guys seem more accommodating of any potential danger, be it from the girls, the gangs, or the cops. Again, I appreciate more regional Mexican songs developing a distinctive melodic identity and better production, but if I think that two of the three artists on the song aren't adding that much to it, kind of hard to recommend, just being honest. Number 71, 23 by Chayce Beckham. Nobody who can drink like me. Soon I'll be 24 and the Lord knows that I can't drink no more. Oh, I've known this was coming for a while. For those of you who don't know, Chayce Beckham is the winner of season 19 of American Idol. I think the surprise for me is not that the zombified show is still on, but that anyone coming off of it can chart. Now, looking at the songs that he performed on the show, he appears to have some pretty good taste, especially in and around country music. And this was the original song that he wrote and performed about 3 years ago, which has been steadily seeing some chart success in Canada last year and has finally crossed over. And I feel like I want to like this more than I do. Beckham's got a pleasant indie country-esque growl in his delivery, and I like that there's more storytelling in this song. From his rougher early family years, to his band on the road, to the relationship that blew up in his face because both he and his partner drank way too much, and now he's trying to pull his life out of the bottle. And that's genuinely alarming when he's talking about being that young, but touring does live to a lot of hard living, and with that fast-picked acoustic rollick that builds more interplay and those staccato electric strumming, I was buying into it. But man, this is a song where Ross Copperman's attempt at more polished mix does him no favors. That fizzy tap that persists alongside the heavier kick drum, honestly, the entire drum kit feels really mechanical and poorly mic'd. Give this song a proper groove, and Beckham could have had something special. But as it is, it's hard to escape the feeling that this is coming from the mainstream, and Music Row has given this a push because they want their cut of what Zach Bryan and the indie country stars found organically, and that kind of sucks for Beckham because he wrote this and he's a good singer. It's just not as good as it should be, and that's disappointing. Speaking of which, number 59, I Can Feel You by Kane Brown.
Your hips, your body tells me when you start to dance. is turning to a we should probably get up out of here. Oh baby, I swear I can feel it in the air.
Look, I heard about the sample even before I heard the song. I was prepared for the worst with this, and I don't know why Kane Brown thought it was a smart idea to go for the big obvious sample when he's got the pipes and the vocal presence to clean up in more neo-traditional tones. You know, the big reason he got signed in the mid-2010s in the first place is why he went viral. But hey, why not suck all the bombastic power and ominous atmosphere out of Phil Collins' drums interpolating In the Air tonight, blend in a fizzy trap progression on a drum machine and an utterly unconvincing attempt at bombast before the final hook, pile on the pitch correction and the very weak backing vocals, and deliver this underpowered nothing of a bro country leftover that should have been given to Dustin Lynch in 2014. What I find so obnoxious with this is that you can take out the Phil Collins interpolation and this becomes the sort of faster paced dance hookup song that Kane Brown shovels out routinely and is honestly not that interesting. The sample is only here for the cheapest of pops and maybe a DJ blend, and let's be real, Dan Huff's production cannot give this anything close to real bombast or low-end power. And considering with that guitar, they're desperately trying to make that solo go off, no, I don't buy it. I don't even know why I'm disappointed, but I am. This sucks. But yeah, it's easily the worst of the week. With the best, you know, I think a lot of folks think I'm going to go for Sophie Ellis-Bextor, but I'm actually picking Wildflowers and Wild Horses by Lainey Wilson. That was a real pleasant surprise. I hope it gets some traction. I don't think Music Row's that smart, but hey, it'd be cool. Next week is primed to get a fair bit busier. It is going to be a little slow to ramp up, though. We'll have to see. Until then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.